What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Casting Cost cEDH podcast. I'm Chase, and today I need your all's help. So, if you watched one of our recent episodes on the podcast, Blake and we kind of talked about our recent tournament experience, and I went undefeated with Sisay, but I went 1-0-4 and didn't make top cut. So I've been working on this the past couple weeks as far as how I want to play the deck, and I didn't feel as comfortable with what I had been doing. And so I made a decision that I was going to try the pod version of this deck. I don't dislike it. I've actually kind of enjoyed it this past week and a half that I've been playing. But right now it's crunch time because tomorrow I'll be going to pool priority. Blake and I both will be in Columbia, Tennessee. So if you happen to be there, come say hi to us. But I'm still kind of debating on playing Sisay for this event, and so I'm kind of torn between the two. So I'm actually going to be looking at both variations of the deck today and breaking them down just a little bit so that way we can see what the differences are between these two variations of Sisay Weatherlight Captain and kind of figure out what I'm going to play tomorrow. Let's get started. So starting out, let's talk about what Sisay is and what she actually does. So Sisay Weatherlight Captain is a 3-drop legendary creature human soldier that's a 2/2 that reads Sisay Weatherlight Captain gets +1/+1 for each color among other legendary permanents you control. Then you can pay Wooburg, search your library for a legendary permanent card with converted mana cost less than Sisay's power, put that card on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So either version of the deck, we are going to be looking at tutoring out legendary permanents. That includes our creatures, planeswalkers, any artifacts, lands. For example, you can tutor those out as long as their CMC is less than Sisay's power. So if you don't have a legendary on board, whenever Sisay hits, she is just a 2/2. You are limited to 1-drops and 0-drops. So, it depends on what you're playing in the deck, but we will kind of go through those. And as she gets bigger based on the color combination, you have a lot of different unique, interesting ways of approaching this. So since I am going to be looking at 2 different decks, I'm going to highlight pretty much the main points and the main differences between each one. So let's kind of get started with what I actually ran with through the decades, where I went 1-0-4. So let's take a look at this deck first. Starting out, if you are familiar with the deck, I am on the kind of more traditional Sisay plan for the tutor chains. And with this, there are a couple of different win lines, but one of which focuses more on the planeswalker activations. And so those of you that might not be familiar with how this deck functions, the planeswalker line goes as followed. So if you're able to put enough activations on the stack, you utilize Amanatu's -1 ability, which exile another target permanent you own, then return it to the battlefield under your control. You Nicol Bolas, Dragon God, copying that Amanatu ability, because this Nicol Bolas has the static ability of has all loyalty abilities of all other planeswalkers on the battlefield, and Saheeli Rai, where you can utilize that +1 ability. Scry 1, Saheeli Rai deals 1 damage to each opponent. Now, the way it actually works is those in combination with Oath of Teferi, where whenever that enters, you exile another permanent you control, return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step, but you can activate loyalty abilities of planeswalkers you control twice each turn rather than only once. So what that allows you to do when you assemble all those pieces is you kind of infinitely flicker back and forth between all of them as you shoot the table for 1 with Saheeli. So that's how that walker line goes, and that's a very reduced version of it, but that's the main kind of combo that we have within this. Now, other lines that we have within Sisay, you have Derevi and Emil, plus either Gaia's Cradle, which you can tutor for with Sisay, Bloom Tender, Fabral Elder, Selvala. Those are your main pieces to be able to generate infinite mana, and this can either on your turn be able to assemble the walker line, or if you for some reason have it on other players' turns, you can get the Teferi out or like you just tutor into the Teferi and then go into it on your turn. But you can assemble that line at instant speed, and then what you do from there is actually go down here to the lands and you utilize Mount Doom. So after you can actually win at instant speed with this land line where you utilize the second ability of Mount Doom, where you pay 3 into it, tap it, deal 1 damage to each opponent, and then you can drain the table out at instant speed with that. Now, the other instant speed win that you do have in this more traditional Sisay line is going to be is probably because of Kennen, where you are able to tutor out Kennen after getting infinite mana, put infinite Kennen activations onto the stack until you hit the Orcish Bowmaster, which is right here below him, and then you're actually able to continue this loop with the Derevi, Emil, and Orcish Bowmaster, where you hit the table for 1 off of the Orcish Bowmaster, or actually Emil plus Orcish Bowmaster. You do that infinitely until you clear the table. And those are our main win conditions within the tutor chain Sisay. Now, there are some cheeky things, like there have been lines in the past with Urtai Resurrected, where say if you are on Forbidden Orchard and you make infinite 1/1s, then you can infinitely flicker Urtai Resurrected and be able to mill out the table that way. I believe that there is a way of being able to do something with Deadpool and Urtai, so on. Another combo that I do have within the deck, as far as just pieces, but it still ends up being the same result. Cultist of the Absolute and Chromatic Orrery. And used to, before the inclusion of Deadpool, you would see Dahada, Binder of Wills in here as a combo piece with that. But basically what the Cultist Chromatic Orrery stuff allows you to do, it is a 1-drop legendary enchantment that as soon as it comes into play, it's going to buff your Sisay by 4. Because it's a black legendary, and it gives your commander +3/+3, flying, death touch, ward, pay 3 life, and at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. So the way that would work is, and really if you have, like, you tutor this out, you make Sisay big. Originally, you would have just gotten Dahada out. Now, I think typically the line is you go for Deadpool, and you're able to kind of make a big enough Deadpool Sisay in order to actually get the Chromatic Orrery out, and then you continue the Derevi, Emil stuff from there. That's, again, just a very reduced way of going about this deck, but those are your main win lines. Now, outside of that, this deck, I may have had a few pieces here and there that were a little bit different from a traditional Sisay tutor chain line. Like I feel like a lot of pilots are off of the Lavinia now. I'm not running the Redshift Rocketeer. I'm opting to put in Skrelv in here. I was trying it out. I never really saw it come up in games, but that can actually be a combo piece as well, where you give Sisay like infinite toxic because it stacks, and so you can hit someone for 10 poison counters and so on. I was really high on the interaction package, which I like, and you'll see that in the other build too. But I'm actually including the Assassin's Trophy here because it's another piece of removal, and specifically it can target the Turbo Cradle decks with removing the Gaia's Cradle. And so this is what I did run, kind of high a little bit on our artifact counts, mainly focusing on the 0 drops in order to ensure we're hitting some colors, and 13 is okay, so being able to include the Mox Opal there is fine. Relic of Legends being able to act as another Enduring Vitality, or sometimes the list run Asika in order to be able to tap your legendaries down for additional mana, and I was opting to do the One Ring in this version. And as far as enchantments go, we talked about the main 2 that are combo pieces. You have Fish, you have Rhystic Study, Smothering Tithe, Touch the Spirit Realm. Now, traditionally with Sisay, you don't really want a whole lot of cards in hand, but sometimes you just have to, and you just have to jam things. So being able to resolve an early Fish, Rhystic Study, or One Ring can be really crucial, but sometimes the Sisay pilots end up with having all their win cons in their hand and not a lot of ways to actually get them out of your hand, which is why most pilots were on the red shift. Being able to pay into the red shift, dump all the permanents you want to, and just kind of be able to go from there. Smothering Tithe is an all-star, but it's also a piece here recently that people see it hit the table really early and they just threat assess you out and just kind of target you throughout the game, or it really slows down the game because now everyone's paying their taxes. You just got to be careful with this piece. I will touch the Spirit Realm for just a second. This was kind of a last include for me, and I actually really like it as an inclusion because of the channel ability. It hits like two of the main things that we don't want to see, which are Opposition Agent and Curse Totem. Gets rid of both of those just for a little bit so you can go off. It's pretty good. So I'm choosing to include it in here. And then taking a look at the land base, I took a play out to Larianese build for this. I'm actually not running all the fetches. I'm not running all the duels. I'm on 9 duels for this build, and I believe 7 fetches. So that way I could actually prioritize the lands that are going to give us any color. So the Exotic Orchard, City of Brass, Command Tower, Mana Confluence, Gemstone, I'll include in that package. Starting Town, which I'm losing it. Did I not include? I may not have included it in this, or I just forgot to put it in. So I did run Starting Town for this event. It's just not here. Tarnished Citadel actually came up several times in games. I was happy with it. So yeah, this is a much more classic tutor chain list for Sisay. And if you want any more information on that, just drop it down below and I'm happy to answer any questions on this build. So now that I've covered what I did play, let's go into the deck that I'm thinking about playing for tomorrow. Okay, so just starting out, looking at it right away, you can already see a pretty big difference with the Planeswalkers. So even though I'm still on the Aminatou, the Saheeli, Teferi, Tyvar, I'm not on the Nicobolus, and I'm not on the, well, I didn't have Dahada in the other one to begin with. So there's one extra Planeswalker in here that's a combo piece. But let's talk about Tezzeret first. Tezzeret is mostly in here just like how you would use it in Kinnan to get a Basalt Monolith. This is mostly here just to grab the Birthing Pod. Being able to tutor out this, be able to -4 it right away, get Birthing Pod out because that's the version of the deck that we're going for in this. You know, to have a little bit more protection, especially like if we get a Teferi down early and we have Sisay out, we can get the Birthing Pod. If we have a bunch of mana, -4 Tezzeret, get pod out Sisay, get the Felidar Guardian, so on, so on, so on. I don't want to get too deep into it because I'll explain some of those pieces as we go. And then Vivien on the Hunt. If you're familiar with Rocco or this version of the deck, Vivien acts as a Planeswalker pod ability that essentially, same scenario. If I'm able to even tutor out Vivien, I can +2 it, sack the Sisay, get Felidar, blink the Vivien, sack the Felidar again, get Karmic Guide, so on, so on, so on. So those are notable changes in the Planeswalkers from the previous version that I was playing. And because it is set up like this, I'm actually not on Oath of Teferi, which you could almost make the case of including Oath in this, like especially if you're trying to do like some Saheeli stuff where you can mine it, well, more of the Aminatou stuff, and then Vivien, like potentially being able to pod out multiple things and continue the chain going. That would be kind of cool, but we're not doing that in this. So yeah, looking at the creatures now, there are some similarities between the two decks. I've already gone over most of the creatures that are the main combo lines between the Felidar Guardian, the Karmic Guide, and the Kiki Jiki. So, finding ways to assemble those pieces in order to basically generate infinite cats. And swing out and hit the table. Now you can actually do Felidar plus Saheeli as well. With the -2 ability, you'd make creature tokens that are the Felidar Guardian, they ETB, they flicker the Saheeli, you keep going. So that's what those are there for. Now, there are some really interesting includes. One, Corridor Monitor, and then the Deceiver Exarch. So these are additional ways of being able to actually continue the lines and be able to, just untap the Birthing Pod or untap a Dork or anything like that. Actually, The Deceiver Exarch is really good in this situation because if, say, someone's presenting a win attempt and maybe you're just shy of being able to put an activation on the stack, or you can kind of bluff and be able to do something with it, like you can flash in if it's in your hand, the Deceiver Exarch, be able to untap whatever dork you need, be able to kind of get some more activations if Sisay is down, and present something on top of someone else's win. So I wasn't sure about it at first, but I actually like those includes here. Still within the creatures, we're still playing Derevi, we're still playing Emil, we're still playing Solvala, Fabro Elder, Bloom Tender. So we still have ways of doing like even the instant speed, Mount Doom shenanigans, or we're still playing Kennen. I'm still on the OBM. We can present a win that way too at instant speed. So we kind of have our bases covered there. Now, something that is not very traditional to the pod lines, and this is kind of an iffy include, I'm actually including Bossum in this. That is just because even though I'm trying to tutor things out through Sisay and pod, my hope is I'm able to generate enough value and mana through my creatures that even if I start drawing into my pieces, I'll be okay. And I have another reason why Bossum is in here, but I will get to that here in a second. Other than that, we're including the red shift. So again, if we have a bunch of cards in hand, we're able to just slam them down, and we can actually activate that at instant speed too. So might even be able to do something with that. Ruby, I think I had in the previous list. It's kind of come in and out with this one, but I think it's still a solid dork to have. Torgal and Biophages have been all stars. Torgal, even in the last tournament with the build I had, it was great. Being able to cast a Sisay off of just this alone, and Sisay instantly coming in as a 4/4 because of the triggered ability of Torgal and it being legendary, awesome. Biophages, kind of the same scenario. It's not legendary, so it won't be on that part, but being able to cast a Sisay and instantly it come in with another +1/+1 counter, also great. I had Marvin in this original list, so that way if I had the Biophages out, like I can copy that ability and be able to make it an even bigger Sisay, but I've kind of excluded it from here for the time being. As far as other combo pieces go, we have Deadpool, being able to either steal things or steal the text box off Sisay. I am still opting for Urtai in this build. Our friend of the channel, Zarek, has been calling this deck Draw, so in honor of him, I'm going to keep this card in the deck. Plus, I'm actually trying to be a little bit higher on my interaction for this build-a-pod, and again, I will explain that stuff here in a second when we get to it, but I like having Urtai, almost called it Draw there, in the 99 as a way of even being able to stop Thoracle wins. And with that being said, I am on Thassa's Oracle. So if you all have seen the recent video that Comedian had put out, he talked about going off of the non-traditional tutor chain route and actually including Thassa's Oracle and Demonic Consultation, Tainted Pact into the 99. I think it's a good call. I think it actually is really fitting even more so in the pod variant because of some of the pieces that we are going to be looking at or have already looked at that can, I could take a 1-drop pod into Thassa's, be able to cast a Demonic Consultation or a Tainted Pact from there, present a win. So I think that's a solid include in this as well. So this is where I go a little bit off track from most pod lists. Now, the main pod list that I've seen online and through Discord is incorporating pieces like Gifts Ungiven and Neoform, Eldritch Evolution, Savine's Reclamation. I am actually opting to go for a little bit more interactive version of this build. So let's take a look at the instances and sorceries. In my last list, I was only on Demonic Tutor. I'm actually including Green Sun here. And part of the reason I'm thinking about doing this way is because I really want to ensure that I'm hitting either the Bloom Tender, Fabro Elder, or the Solvala. Green Sun just hits those. Yeah, I mean, they're all green. The majority of the creature base is green, so it's going to hit anything that I want. And if I get Green Sun back after casting it early, I might be able to continue digging through the deck. So I'm actually choosing to do these two as my sorceries. Now let's look at the instances. Again, this is an area where I think my build on this differs a little bit from even the traditional pod build for this. So I am trying to be a lot more interactive. with the Abrupt Decay, the Fierce Guardianship, Flusterstorm, even Galadriel's and Legolas's Into the Flood Maw, Long Goodbye, Loose Wall, Sacrifice, Mental, Mindbreak, Swan Song. Now, I was doing a little bit more interaction here, but I was having a hard time justifying some things. And I'll kind of get to some of those things in the considering pile towards the end of this, just to see what you guys think. But I am actually trying to have it as a little bit more interactive piece. I had originally built this where I did not include the Eladamri's Call nor the Court of Calling, but I actually kind of like them here because I'm able to, again, if I need to, like say I need to potentially stop a win attempt, but I don't have enough for a Sisay activation, but I have a bunch of mana, guess what? I can Court of Calling for Urtai. I can Court of Calling or I can Eladamri's Call Urtai. If a Kennen player slams down a Seaborn Muse, and I think that if I had an extra turn, I could potentially win. Well, before they go into the next turn, and if everyone's tapped out, I can Court of Calling for Deadpool and steal the text box from that Seaborn Muse. Like, those are relevant plays, especially in the current meta. So that's why I'm opting to do those pieces here. And again, maybe a little bit higher on some of the removal stuff. I'm on Swords to Plowshare, Long Goodbye. The Galadriel's is it's super flexible, so I can protect my own board if I need to. Into the Flood Maw to bounce either the pesky opposition agent or like a Curse Totem or things like that to make sure that I can continue doing what I need to from there. Then I think it's a good include. So let me know what you guys think on that section of it, because that's the one I'm having the most difficulty with in brewing this, but I kind of like where it's at. So let's look at our artifacts and our enchantments now. If you notice, I am pretty low on the artifact count. Now, some of that I'm making up for in my creatures. I think right now there's like 13 creatures that can produce mana, even though the Redshift can only produce the mana for activated abilities. Something like Enduring Vitality is really good to make sure I can still tap it down for whatever I need. But let's look at these artifacts first. Now, Agatha's, regardless of how you build this deck, Agatha's I think is an auto include, just because you can be able to buff Sisay, you can dump colorless mana into Sisay activations or Kennen activations. You can turn Sisay into a dork. I did this the other day in a casual pod where I was able to win off basically exiling my own Fabral Elder, putting the counter on Sisay, and I actually had Sisay and Survival of the Fittest out so that I could produce 2 mana, and I was able to pod out from there. So, like, Agatha's such a good include, such an all-star in Sisay decks. Make sure you have it. Birthing Pod, just like when doing the same thing we talked about with Vivian. Like, this is one of the pieces this deck is centered around, so we have to include it. Now, this is where my deck building, I don't want to say goes out the window a little bit, but I'm not used to running this low of artifacts. But I'm opting to include at least 3 0-drop artifacts, the Soul Ring and the Mana Vault. Mana Vault more so, I can tap it, pay 2 life, cast the Birthing Pod. Soul Ring, just because it's Soul Ring, turn 1, Soul Ring into a Agatha Soul Cauldron or this Arcane Signet or the Felwar Stone are really good. I know that I think some lists for Pod are choosing to do Aether Vial instead of the Felwar Stone. I think that's a great include. I've done it, Aether Vial, even in the Tutor chain list, and I've enjoyed it before. I'm just having a hard time justifying it in this one, especially if I am trying to be a little bit more interactive and making sure that I'm color fixing. Felwar Stone can be good at almost any point in the game, especially really early on. Aether Vial is almost only good early on. So that's kind of my thought process behind that. And then these enchantments, almost the same. I'm not on the Oath. And if you notice, I'm not on Cultist for this one. Now, I think most pod lists also run Cultist to the absolute, and I think that's perfectly fine. I just think that for this build, with the exception of Vivian, if I'm focusing on, what's more so in the 99 and actually trying to tutor, like whether I'm tutoring things out or I'm using Survival of the Fittest as a combo piece, like if I'm even drawing cards through the Ristic and the Fish and the Boss Sim, I said I'd explain that later, I don't want to just feel like I'm stuck with a bunch of things in hand, and Cultist sometimes kind of feels that way, especially like a Cultist early on feels bad if I start removing pieces from my board and then I draw into all my win cons anyway. So that's why I've chosen not to include that here. Smothering Tithe, again, all-star in Sisay decks. I think I'm going to run it in every deck that I can that needs a lot of mana. I just mentioned Survival of the Fittest as a combo piece, and that's what it is here. Being able to potentially pitch a creature to get a Karmic Guide, to get a Kiki-Jiki, pitch a creature to get a Felidar Guardian, to get a Kiki-Jiki, to get a Karmic Guide, cast the Karmic Guide, getting back either the Felidar or the Kiki-Jiki, and being able to do the combo loops from there. Awesome. If I had, Tutor for Teferi, and he get out of a Sisay activation, I have Survival out and a creature in hand with Tainted Pact or Demonic Consultation, I'm just going to go get Thassa's, and I'm going to present a win. So I think Survival is just really, really good in this deck and very flexible. Touch the Spirit Realm. Again, it's a flexible removal piece that on our turn, if something comes down and we have this in hand, we just channel and we continue doing what we need to do. And then finally, looking at the land base now, at 28 lands in this one, I would like to be a little bit higher on the land count, but I think that's still fine. I would say that this is an area too, just as much as like the instants and the sorceries. Let me know what you all think that I might be able to take out, so that way I can bump it up to 29, but I still think 28 is fairly decent here. So now let's take a look at the cards that I'm actually kind of considering still in this list. So starting off with creatures, I was talking with, again, our friend of the channel, Zarek, and he mentioned Arena Rector, which would be really, really good. And this is a proxy-friendly tournament, so I could potentially proxy it out really quickly. I just have a thing about me where I like owning the actual copies of the card. So it is really good here. This comes down, if you Birthing Pod, you're able to kill the Arena Rector to the Birthing Pod, be able to get a Karmic Guide plus maybe even Vivian or Saheeli or another Walker or Teferi or whatever you need to. Like there's a lot of just flexibility with this card, so I like it. Colossal Sky Turtle, I would honestly really like to have a slot in for this deck because, again, it's another piece that it can be removal, it can be recursion, which Sisay has historically really struggled with. So I would like to put this in here. I just haven't figured out where I want to put it. So drop it down in the comments what I should cut out for Colossal Sky Turtle. Finale and Nature's Rhythm, again, green. These are not green creature tutors, but they've proven their worth in the format. And, even in Ian's list and traditional Sisay pilots, like, during Dockside meta, Finale was a really strong card to include. So it's still really good. Nature's Rhythm, even though it's newer, has proven its worth in our format. I think it's good. I'm not as high on including them here, but they are still in the considering list. Assassin's Trophy, I did have, and even more the traditional tutor chain lines have started including Assassin's Trophy as a way of actually, I think, just dealing with Cradle decks. So it's really good. It's flexible. Yeah, you give your opponent a land if they're running basics, but that doesn't even matter. Psych Rift is, it's good. But it's another kind of control piece you have to dump a bunch of mana into, and I'd rather be winning if I'm having to spend 7+ mana on stuff. Strict Serenade. This is a really, really strong counterspell and is really good in Sisay specifically because it targets the artifacts and the creatures. And again, we're worried about Oppo, we're worried about Draenith sometimes, we're worried about Curse Totem, things that are going to keep us off the Sisay plan. Strict Serenade is the thing that really protects that. Now, right now, I am opting to do the Luswa's Sacrifice in place of this. I'm okay with them kind of being interchangeable. I'll be honest with that. So it's really strong piece. I would like to include it somewhere, but we'll see. Mox Amber is really, really good in Sisay decks, not just because it's a 0-drop artifact, but it's almost always going to be turned on because of the number of legendaries you are running in the deck. So it's really good. It's hard for me to exclude it. But here we are. I have it in the considering for now. And it might work its way back in before tomorrow, but I don't know. I don't know about it. Same thing with Relic of Legends. It has really great legendary synergy, kind of almost acts as a Springleaf Drum in a way, where your creature instantly comes down and you can tap a legendary creature in order to make more mana. But for what we are trying to do here, it might be a little bit too high. Plus, we're kind of low in a way, kind of lowering our legendary count, or the likelihood of hitting legendaries that we have to cast, just because we are including all those pieces for the pod stuff. So that's why I have it in considering here. Now that we've kind of gone through those things, let's look at a couple of test hands. Okay, so starting out, it's honestly pretty strong, I think. Like, if I'm in seat 1 with this hand in particular, I hate pitching the Otawara, but I would probably go Misty, Mox Diamond pitching the Otawara, Chrome Mox pitching probably the Demonic Consultation here, even though it's a combo piece, obviously. Like, we hate to see it, but at the same time, it's not bad. And then I think I'd cast Lotho. Like, if I'm seat 1 or seat 2, I'd cast Lotho here and go ahead and get some extra treasures. Kennen seems really good to go off right off the rip with that kind of hand, but yeah, I'd choose Lotho in this situation and be able to tutor out something that produces white. So my thinking is probably like a Savannah. So that way I have Savannah, Chrome Mox that taps for black, Mox Diamond that taps for anything. Have those two plus Lotho on board, holding up the Mox Diamond for faking interaction, and then next turn being able to cast the Kennen or even Sisay for that matter. So I think that's good. Let's look at another one. This is a really fast hand out of the gate, but does it fizzle? So we're on 2 lands. I think especially like if I'm in seat 4, I almost keep this hand, because what you can do is you can go City of Brass, Mox Diamond, pitching this Misty Rainforest. Then you have Lotus Petal, and you can tap the Mox Diamond for the Soul Ring. So then you're held up with Demonic Consultation and Fierce Guardianship, and then turn 2 you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. And let's see what we would have drawn off that. Enlightened Tutor. I mean, that's not awful. Being able to potentially like get the Birthing Pod out, even though you don't have a creature, you could do Sisay. You could potentially Birthing Pod and Sisay in the like turn 3 or whatever, and then like start doing shit. Or like turn 2 Sisay, turn 3 be able to do the Birthing Pod and kind of win from there with a slight protection from the Fierce. Yeah, that's okay. Again, it's a very explosive hand, but especially if I'm in a lower seat, I would be greedy with this hand to keep it. Let's look at one more. So this one, I kind of feel like it's almost a trap hand. Like, if you were forced to keep something like this, it is literally like, I think honestly you do Scrubland, Lotus Petal, and you cast the Biophages first over the birds. Might sound a little bit odd, but it's still going to tap for a color, like a mana of any color, and whenever you use that mana on, it's going to get a +1/+1 counter. So like, say if you did that and then turn 2 you cast the birds off of it, which again sounds kind of odd, but now you have a 1/2 bird, slightly a little bit more protected from the like a Bowmaster or anything else like that, and you have some color fixing obviously here. It's just really slow. That's the thing. I like, you can do some things with it like I just described, but I don't think I would opt to keep this hand. And because of that, let's look at one more. I feel like this is a trap hand. I would not keep this whether I'm lower seat, middle, or going first, just because you have 1 land and then you could potentially hold up for into the Flood Maw, or you could cast the Ragavan on 1, hoping to be able to get through on combat damage and get a treasure and steal some stuff. But I don't think I'd keep this hand. I lied. Let's do another hand. This is a hand that's good if you are not in seat 1 and you're trying to bank on people just producing any colors, so like a Command Tower, City of Brass, anything like that. So that way you can get the S% all in 1, and then you might be able to get some card draw from there, but other than that, So yeah, it just really kind of comes down to seat order on that one too. And that's kind of it for both of my list for Sisay. Now, I know I kind of did not break them down as much as I have been the other videos, but again, this is one that I am reaching out to you all for help on, just to try and figure out some different options, or maybe think about different includes on this before I go and play it tomorrow. Short notice, but hey, it is what it is. So if you like either of these builds and you want to give me some feedback on this, or if you think I should play the tutor chain list over that, and maybe even switch over to something like how Ian was talking about, and including the Thosses into that, drop it down in the comments. If there are any other decks that you would like to see me cover, or Blake cover, I think he actually has some things lined up pretty soon for you guys to potentially have other deck techs and interviews with people in the community. So that would be cool to see. Like I said, we are going to pull priority tomorrow, and because of that, be expecting a kind of different video from us on Monday for our podcast episode. So please tune into that. I think that one's going to be a fun one, but it will be another tournament report, just kind of more so in the moment. Spoilers. So if you enjoyed that kind of content as well, check us out on Monday. But yeah, this is the deck for this week. Sisay, I really enjoy playing this deck. I've had a lot of fun in the past, and I'm looking forward to playing more of this variant. Plus, I'm trying out some other builds for it too. So if those happen to pop up on the channel, you'll see it. Until then, if you like what we're doing, leave a comment, like, subscribe, and as always, go play some cEDH.